Sing Talk. This is Sing Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sing Talk Radio. I am here today with my fine co-host and wife, Shannon. And we have a guest co-host today, her fine and upstanding brother, Sean, and they'll be helping me co-host this episode today. We have some very special guests that have just relocated here to LA, and we're excited to have them in the studio today with us. We have Dr. David Harris and his fine partner, Laurel Irene. Sorry about that. I'm trying to read here. I don't normally read these. Let's just a real brief overview of the two of you, and then I'll let you guys explain who you are a little bit. You're a baritone, mostly doing choral compositions, and particularly for the voice and vocal instrument. And you're a soprano, and I'm assuming you sort of met through the process of voice and singing.
That is true. Actually, It's Ingo Tietze's fault.
We blame him for so many things.
So many things.
But you guys met at the SVI program, right?
We did. It's a great dating service, actually.
Yeah. So explain the SVI. Well, let's go into that for just a second, and then let's dive into why you're here today in the particular areas of voice and what your specialty, especially what you're doing in LA these days. So
SVI is the Summer Vocalogy Institute at the National Center for Voice and Speech, run by Ingo Tietze and awesome colleagues. And it's can be a 9-week program. You can do it 3 weeks at a time. And so I was there for 3 months and met David in the first part, and you get to dissect larynxes, and you get to learn all the different equipment and just really pick Ingo Tietze's brain, which is awesome.
It's also
Frog larynx?
Frog larynx. It was a mule
we
deer.
did that too.
was it a mule deer?
Biology.
We did a mule deer because it's closer to the human size, and it's kind of cool because
You did
do
a
all
what?
kind of
I'm sorry?
a mule deer.
A mule deer.
Larynx from a deer.
Okay.
It's slightly larger than the frog.
Yeah.
But like one of the things we did was to hang lots of weight on it, on the ligament, and watch it stretch without breaking. It's awesome. You just keep putting load on. It's 3 solid weeks of intensive physics and biomechanics first. So all the fun stuff she just mentioned kind of comes at the tail end of blindingly crazy
Fun
math.
stuff. Are you talking about you guys dating?
Exactly. That's still going
The
on.
fun stuff's
Physics.
later. Yeah.
It's blindingly boring.
Right.
You guys are going backwards.
We are.
We are. It's good.
So were you guys both vocal nerds before you got there anyway? I mean, you both studied the science and all that sort of stuff and just thought, I just want to give myself credibility by going to this? Or did you get there and you were overloaded with new nerd information?
Oh, it was totally new, but I think we both had come into it with lots of questions and read what we could and taken it in as much as we already could without that really in-depth, with the source, with the actual people who were doing the research. So
Yeah, I mean, I'd been, now at this point, I've been studying voice science for about a decade, but everything I'd gotten before was either through working with people who knew a little bit or reading random books. It was hard to know. There was very little focus in the world 10 years ago, even, if you had to know somebody who said, oh yeah, follow that path. So several years into that, I asked Jeannie Levitri, who's another kind of renowned voice scientist in practice, where should I go? And she said, oh yeah, go to this thing. And so when I got there, I didn't quite know what I was going to get into, and it opened up a world of new opportunities.
Partner.
And I got a partner.
Yeah.
That's really why,
Did you guys know each other before you went there? Because you were both in Boston before you went there, right?
No, I moved to Boston after we met there.
Oh, okay.
I was looking for a vocologist at the school I was working.
And a girl, yeah.
And a girl, yeah. The vocologist came first. Like within 2 days, she was the star pupil in the class, and everybody wanted her to be in the study group. And all that, right? Yeah, I was the one that won out. Right. And so within a day or two, I said, "Hey, I've got this. I need a vocologist. What are you doing?" And she said, "Well, I'm not doing a whole lot. She was living in Seattle and had things going, but she said maybe." So 6 weeks later, I talked her into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good timeline. Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
So were you guys, when you showed up there, were you just like, my people? Like, was it just, because you're probably big fish in a little pond for what you do, right?
crazy people is what they call us.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say that.
Right. Nobody believes that what we're saying is true. It's all voodoo. So
Yeah.
But how do you get into that as a child? Like, you can go to Little League, or we can take you to this camp where you take apart deer. I'll go to the deer one.
I did Little League first.
Okay.
I think you get into it as a child by having really confusing voice lessons for
Yeah.
years upon years, and having questions no one can answer, and following these crazy methods that are supposedly going to make you feel better about singing, and they don't. And so you keep asking questions and
Curiosity.
In fact, we ask Ingo that, like, with all the lessons that you've had over the years, did you have teachers that really gave you strong answers? And he goes, no, but they gave me a lot of questions,
Totally, yeah.
which sort of sparked the fire to all the research he's done.
And I would add, they didn't give questions; they forced questions.
Yeah.
I was always
Forced answers.
in choirs, and I think. Well, I could talk about that, but in choirs, I was always the one who the choir director was putting a hand in my face. Even in college, we had a David out symbol. The choir director would run her hand across the sky like this, and I knew to shut up. So
Why? When you're asking questions or singing? Or?
yeah, because I was always so loud, and particularly the vocal technique I was using was bringing out certain harmonics that stuck out of the choral texture.
I see.
And so I was just having fun and singing, and I
But you
was
can't
always a
blend
leader.
doing that.
But you can't blend doing that, and that's all they knew how to do is say tuck
Stop.
in.
Yeah.
So that's a question I've been kind of unraveling since.
Did you
I
ever
was
want
young.
to sing solo?
Yeah, I sing solos all the time, but
Okay.
in a choir,
But I'm just curious about your training with both. Do you have to really adapt? Do you feel like you have to change quite a bit?
well, that's actually one of the main reasons I got into voice science. So in the choral world, most of what you're taught to do is work with groups. So I got very adept, and I think still am, at helping groups work together to solve problems as a unit. But what it doesn't do in all of that groupthink is help the individual address their own concerns. And that's paramount when you're talking about the voice, because it's individual. So as I got more into voice science, and particularly as Laurel and I started working together and creating VoiceScienceWorks, it became very obvious to me that if I address the individual first, the group stuff can happen in really quick turns. And so, back to the soloist thing, in choirs, we are forced to, by design, sing in multiple different styles. There's very few choirs today that just sing in one style, and usually they're like church choirs or something. So here we are as bodies of people who are told, make one sound, and that's the only sound you can make, and usually it's a sound that's fairly contained and restricted. And then we're given all of this repertoire across all these styles and said, sing this in that sound. And it starts to sound stupid. So I was disinterested in that, but I couldn't figure out how to get people to make different sounds with this whole groupthink method, right? I could talk to them about the sounds, but I couldn't get them to make them. So that's one reason I wanted to get into, okay, what's actually functioning here, and how can I talk to them in this limited amount of time and get them there,
Sure.
and allow them to be solo quality if we need to, or to tuck in if we need to.
But learn to blend.
Well, blend is a cantankerous term that actually doesn't do what we think it does. It's a definition that talks about group unity and sound unity, right? But that can happen in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And so if we use blend as a club that says you're not doing this thing, we've started at the end. Whereas if we start at the beginning and say, what kind of sounds do we make? What kind of harmonics do you need to bring out in order to create a sound that's going to work together with these people, and start talking that way and functionally describe, okay, if your voice is doing this, if it feels like this, if you're making these sounds, if you're hearing this, this is what's going on. Given enough of that information, then I can say, okay, we're approaching a gospel piece. We need this particular sound, and we need, let's push these buttons that we've been training you to do. And they all go, okay, I know how to get there. As opposed to, no, shh,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
the default choir
Yeah.
method.
And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
what happens in voice instruction a lot is that we start at the end. Like, there's no button in my body for blend. There's no button for tune. We start with, well, I want to hear this, but what's the actual action or process my body can go through to get to that result?
You were
So-
talking about time. And you said a short amount of time. What's a short amount of time? A time frame? Is it a week for a group working together where you
Well,
see the
it
result?
could be, an hour a week with a choir, and there's so many jobs that you're also teaching them how to read music, to learn the notes, there's just, there's so much to do in
And
an
our
hour.
first presentation, PAVA presentation, was 10 minutes a day, twice a week, because that's all we had to cover these kind of functional things
About the voice.
about the
Yeah.
voice, because like Laurel said, we had to teach music, I had to teach sight reading, I had to teach ensemble techniques, we had to teach performance techniques, and we had very limited capacity, time capacity, with students who didn't know a lot. So
Do you teach the dance moves too?
we taught the dance
Oh, yeah,
moves.
choreography, yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yes.
That's pretty much how Dave dances on the
Choral.
dance floor.
You
That's
called
why
it
I don't
choreography?
Yeah.
Choreography.
All right.
It's sort of like, yeah. And step. See, I can do it and then just mouth the words.
No,
Yeah.
you can't.
We need those people.
We do.
So the choral, the groups that you're working with here, and are you working with choral and choir as well? Or are you doing?
So
Well, fill me in on what you're doing, because I got a little bit of what David's up to, but
Right. Well, because we just made this move to LA, for the last 2 years, we've been at College of the Holy Cross in Boston, and where we created the model of me, a voice teacher, vocalogist, in the choral rehearsal, partnering with the choir director, and also bringing the students outside to work one-on-one to kind of really implement all the language and new ideas we were using. And then out of that came our website and nonprofit VoiceScienceWorks. And then we moved here, I guess, 5 months ago, because I'm starting my master's, have started at USC.
Right, okay.
Working with Lynn Helding,
Right,
who's a wonderful vocalogist.
best.
And, yeah, the reason we wanted to come out.
did
You guys
say
are really underachievers.
We are, yeah.
Gosh,
I just want to know about
Get
this
out.
choral. She's
she's adorable.
she's awesome.
Sorry.
So that's why you're in LA then. USC drew you here.
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, we're still doing projects. David's working with C3LA, Contemporary Choral Collective in LA, that you started in.
Yeah, it's a really cool model for choral music. Actually, the first one was in New York called C4, and then I started one in Boston called Triad, and then when I knew I was coming here, some friends here who were in C4 as well in New York said, hey, we want to start this group. And I said, put me in. So I helped them start it. And it basically is a collective. So we're all leadership in the group. And they're about half the group are conductors, about half of us are composers. So we write for the group as well. So it's just a really cool way to create
And
music.
you call it C3?
C3
You're working
LA.
your way down to C?
We are. We're coming
Down the
back
octave,
down. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And then I'm also teaching at AMDA, teaching voice there.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
How's that, by the way?
It's a really great way to do college, I think. They've got a professional model that is, it's like they trimmed away a lot of the fat that comes in a lot of academic conservatories. And there's a lot of collegiality. The goals are clear. The assessments are clear. And the students are pretty awesome. So I'm having a great time.
And what a great other perspective for you to have is to work with that more musical theater, CCM style, especially, I mean, voice science.
Can I just tell you I hate the term CCM?
Sure.
Sure.
It
Yeah.
needs to change.
We hate a lot of terms. It's okay. but
we've actually been discussing that since the PAVA thing in October. Is like, that's got to change.
What does it
Yeah.
stand
Like if
for?
you guys,
Yeah, what is CCM?
Contemporary commercial music.
so
Oh,
it's
I-
everything. Well, because it used to be non-classical.
remember how that used to piss you
Oh
off?
my
And
god,
that was
that one. I'm still thinking. Of
We'd have
teachers.
family
John wakes
fights
up
over
every
that.
morning.
No, don't say that again.
Right.
No, but one of the things with PAVA, I think it's a fantastic organization. But what I would love to see is more of what people like me and Ryan Luchuk and other people do in it. And we're sort of struggling to find our voice there
Yeah.
because
Totally.
we work with these pop singers, and there's not really the same amount of effort, research, care,
Oh,
and
yeah.
concern for that.
Well, 'cause the
we get
researchers-
poo-pooed to a certain
yeah.
degree, like, well, it's pop, it's not.
Right. All the
They're using a
researchers
microphone,
come
yeah.
from the bel canto tradition.
Right.
So, of course, I think not intentionally, but it's the default. We go from where we know. They're trying to prove what they're doing. But, like, again, at AMDA, it's the first school I've been at where they said, please teach every style you can, which is what I have to do in choirs anyway, as I mentioned. So, here I am in teaching voice anywhere else. If you give a student a pop song and anybody finds out about it, you get kind of looked at badly.
It's illegal. Yeah.
Right. But here they're like, yeah, they need to know how to do everything. So I think that's the model that will eventually leak its way into academia. Because it's just what our world demands. And in the process, we need to figure out how to make it more welcome in the circles where it should be more welcome.
Well, I mean, it's a legitimate It's a legitimate music style for one, but it
That's
also
another
is
term.
it's
Legit.
legit. But it is the one that drives motivation for young kids to get into
Yeah.
music anyway.
Yeah.
And then they get a chance to spread and learn, whether it's choral or choir or classical
Whatever.
or art songs or musical theater. They get to spread out a little bit.
Well, Laura was talking about the people at USC who don't necessarily love opera, but that's their only choice.
Oh, I don't know if I want to say that.
I'll say it. The people
Yeah, you
at USC do not like opera.
I want a
Each
scholarship.
person.
No.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I think, okay, my point was just that I think a lot of people keep pursuing music in higher education, but just choose to go classically because that's the only option
Right.
to continue in
Right.
academia. And not necessarily because they're like, opera or die. It's just that's the option.
Right.
they
Well,
have.
and to USC's credit, they went and hired a bunch of Berkeley ex-staff for their contemporary side.
True.
And
And
so
they
they
do
are
have-
really
they
trying
have
to
They
build
never
that.
talk to the classical side.
Right. And
Right. We eat
welcome
lunch
to
across
all
that. Yeah.
universities.
But
I used to
yeah.
watch BYU. They had the musical theater side and they had the classical side, and it was literally war constantly.
Gang fights.
Yeah.
Is that where the
Yeah, that's right.
Sharks and the Jets. But I mean, learning all these styles, we look at the way we just learn in general, contrast is what we need. We can't just pick something out of the air. We have to compare it to something we did before. And so learning, okay, this is an acoustical choice for this style, here's one for this. Comparing the two solidifies both of them in your body versus just, my voice only does one thing, and clearly it doesn't. It's the most diverse instrument on
Yeah.
the face of the planet.
And there's a huge value to being on mic that
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't
Absolutely.
get. You can't get in classical music. You can't have the nuances and the subtleties unless you're on mic.
That's not
So-
why you're training. In classical music, you're not training the voice to be on mic. You're training the voice to maximize its acoustic properties by itself. It's a very different goal.
Yeah, totally.
And the voice can do all those things. I think that's the message that we try and say. It's not that, or I should say it this way. Forever we've said, as singers and speakers, I have a voice. This is what my voice does. This is who I am. But the reality is our voices are so much more flexible. And we prove every day with anyone who's willing to try that you can actually make all of those sounds. Now, there are some subtleties that come with body shape, that,
There's
like...
some limitations, yes.
Well,
yeah.
or differences, like Pavarotti, when he sung Ahae, brought out the third harmonic, whereas Domingo brought out the sixth, right? Both amazing tenors.
Exactly.
See?
I was going to say
knew
that.
There
You
and
were-
But how quickly can can your voice, if you're trained, go from one to the other?
Very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you have students come in and they say, "No, I'm only an opera singer. I don't do
Mm-hmm.
another," is that because that's the way they were taught, or is it they're
Their
comfortable
passion.
with if they're comfortable with that voice?
It's not biology for sure. It's not like, I mean, ask anyone to imitate two different people. I mean, I can go from, I mean, you can do
Right.
anything with your voice, but I think it becomes an emotional part of their identity.
Hmm.
Like because I grew up in that feeling of, well, I just can't sing anything else. Like I was born to sing this, but I can. I just don't necessarily feel as emotionally comfortable with it because it's not my habit.
It's huge.
Yeah, that was my question. Was they come in saying, "This is all I do, and I'm not comfortable doing another"?
Yeah, and some do.
That's what you would say.
That's what I was saying. I'm just saying it right now. Don't put me in a box.
Sean does Lou Rawls, and that's it.
That's
Yeah.
it.
No, Sean and I did Neil Diamond's "Forever in Blue Jeans."
Yeah, that was.
Constantly, but it was mostly just the dance moves. And it was
The choreography,
"Forever
yeah.
in Blue Jeans, babe," but we weren't singing
That's
it. We were
hot.
just
We
were-
mouthing it.
right.
And
Y'all
we
are
were
all there.
But that's all
amazing.
you do.
That wasn't even
That's-
the
But that was it.
Well,
And
now
then we stopped.
imagine dancing, Thriller, and it just wouldn't feel like you.
Imagine 5, 6, 7.
But yeah, I mean,
Anyways, back to you guys.
if you speak with, just try speaking with a different accent, right? And see if
How
that-
was this?
right. Does it feel like you, or does it feel like you're making fun of a Scotsman,
Connery.
right? Specifically, that Scotsman.
That feels good.
We
I think
found
I'll
you.
use that.
You were missing the whole time. But yeah, so that's another area that we're actually just kind of dabbling our toes into, is how to create a sense of authenticity, not to the audience, but to the singer. So what does it mean? How many reps do you have to go through before using a different acoustic registration starts to feel like you? And it's a big challenge.
Well, yeah, but maybe starting from the motivation, the emotional, why would I make that sound? Like, why would someone want to like I think about it all the time with these kind of like this nostalgia band thing that's going on. It's like I'm gonna go back and do the like whatever that sound is people are making now.
So that's how you guys hooked up. She did that, and you went, I'm in. I'm in.
But when someone does that, like that, I'm thinking about that 40s, almost postmodern jukebox kind of thing everyone's doing. If they don't have the emotion behind why I would make that utterance, that expression, it does just sound like an imitation. And there's something, I'm really curious in finding what that exactly is.
Can I just tell you, this is the reason I have the hardest time attending musical theater. And I've trained tons of, especially when I lived in San Francisco, all the touring companies and stuff. And I go to the shows and I'm so uninspired because too many of them are
phoning it in, yeah.
I'm turning left because that's what I'm supposed to do, and there's no connection to it. And from my world, if you're not connected to the music, if you're in pop or jazz, and I can tell you're not connected to the music, you're gone.
Yeah,
that's
anyone can sense it.
That's my whole thing forever and ever since I started, even in high school when I was teaching. Whenever I got a chance to be in charge of something, it's got to come from somewhere, right? And I think it's so easy to get caught in the loop of, well, this is what we do as a profession, either as a stage director, as a voice teacher, whatever, and to not ask the question of where did this start, where's it coming from, and if you can't get back to that kind of locus, then the rest of it will always seem like you're phoning it in.
I mean, that's why you see people doing gospel music, and they can do the riffs and the runs and they have the color. But you don't understand it from the inside out. You understand it from the aesthetic only. And where did that come from? Where did the pain come from? That's why it's written that way. So.
But anyone can feel that. I mean, we have mirror neurons. Like, people who aren't music buffs will say, well, I didn't like it, but I don't know anything. I'm like, you absolutely know what you felt.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Of course, there are some styles you have to hear again and again to really appreciate, but that immediate connection to what someone's saying, that's just a universal skill. It's not about what degree you have.
And actually, I think that's the beautiful thing about Shannon and her brothers and her whole family. You guys love music more than most of the people that I work with professionally. Like, these guys love music.
Yeah.
And they're not musicians. There's no but. We can't say. There's no but. You guys, these guys
and I can see you,
appreciate.
Dan.
We saw the baby dance.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah, back when they used to.
No, but I know what you're talking about as far as the emotion, and I'll bring up Whitney Houston. Do you remember when she sang the national anthem or Star Spangled Banner at and it was like she's sweating and it's like the most watched one ever, and it's because she was so into it, and people who are just watching it
high.
Wow.
But you feel it.
But you
Yeah. I'm going to stick with that one.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever study animal sounds?
Well, you mentioned that. Ingo Tietze studies animal sounds quite often.
I mean, that's a big part of SVI, right? Is not studying the animal sounds for the sake of studying animal sounds as much as how much can we learn from animals and apply that to. In fact, he's told me multiple times that's kind of the direction he's going to try and get more funding for the human voice.
Yeah, it's one of his pet projects, and I think something he's championed.
Yeah.
He brings it in, but it's not a major focus.
Into SVI.
Maybe not yet. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not yet. Huh?
But like
awesome.
even Vox and Silico, his new software, which is profound. Have you used it yet? It's really, really fun. They built into it the chance to look at animal sounds, but they just haven't gotten there yet.
I think once they find out about the deer, they're not going to participate in any of it.
We're going to skip out on this. We're good. But,
Right.
yeah.
Come here, giraffe.
Yeah.
But yeah,
This is
why
gonna
not? I
take a
mean, it's just
long
like
time.
the idea that if we're only looking at one style, like, okay, the voice can only do bel canto, but then we widen that and widen that. Like, the
Okay,
more
here's a
information
question
we
for
can
you.
get.
What's bel canto?
We're just using that like CCM.
Yeah. I thought that was a guy.
Bel canto.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a capital of...
It's that new
Bel
Italian
canto.
place out in Venice.
Well, there's bel
Very
canto and can belto.
Really?
Wow.
I'm going to start with a bel canto.
Ken Belto.
Pig Latin.
Ken Belto? No.
No, bel
But
canto.
lyrics,
Sounds
sure.
delicious.
And this, to go back to your point about CCM, is one of the challenges
that.
of the voice is that it's so versatile. It can do so much. And because of that, it has been taught in so many different ways, and yet all those ways have similarities. And until recently, as we know, the hard evidence where we can point to stuff and say, this is actually happening at this moment, has been missing. So
this is like a decade old.
Right.
I mean, it's seriously,
Right.
voice training has been going on for 300 years.
at least
Yeah, and,
more. Yeah.
well, specific voice training's probably only mid-1700s, right?
Pedagogy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the word head voice came up in 1687 is the first site that we see of it.
400 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
350.
people have been teaching people to sing since people realized they could vocalize, right? I mean, some caveman liked the other caveman's grop better than that one, so they said, "Oh, teach me your grop," whatever. I mean,
But
we can imagine.
we've had
They can only say
methodology and
gruff, and then they can
pedagogy.
say
Yeah.
Teach
for-
me
for-
your-
yeah.
methodology.
But
okay.
it's a short period of time that we've actually had science to back up what is being said. It's
Very true.
really,
Yeah.
really a short period of
Yeah.
time, and which is why I think there's a lot of the filtering process happening now.
Yeah.
So that, well, that's interesting idea. Here's what's really happening, and then
Yeah.
that either backs up what you're doing or it doesn't.
And the labeling, I mean, we want to put things into boxes
We
to
need to.
understand them. But my big thing is if we're going to replace words, it's like with the toddler, you have to give someone a new word to use. Like, because forever we've been like, head voice and chest voice are ancient and archaic and make no sense. Like, your voice does not come out of your chest, and it's a weird image to me, and it explains so little about a wide array of sounds.
Totally agree with you.
We all know those words, and
So we use them.
Yeah, we use them. But we have to replace it. We can't just tell someone like, "Oh, we don't say that." We have
Your
to tell them,
Scooby-Doo
"What can you
voice?
say?"
Your Scooby-Doo voice. Yeah.
Sploobity blah blah.
Exactly.
It has
what
about
would
that
happen.
much.
Right.
It has about that much
changed
meaning,
it.
right?
We've changed it.
But with so my students say, yeah, my falsetto just feels so weird. I'll say, so actually what's functionally going on here when you say falsetto?
Because everyone attaches a different.
And falsetto
Totally.
really can mean lots of different things because lots of different things are going on. So in that moment, what was functioning and why did it feel weird to you there versus when you did this that you could also call falsetto? Right? So I still let them use the term. Fine. That's the term means something to them. But I want to know if they understand what's going on.
Or if you're speaking the same
Well,
language.
I've worked with singers that see color. And so nothing matters unless
It's
Shaka
orange,
Khan, we
right.
talked about, she's saying these high notes for Through the Fire. Like, how do you get those? And she goes, it's purple to me.
Yeah.
Who are you to take that away from her?
Right.
Well said.
And
yeah.
I think you brought up a good point. The fact that she came up with that language makes it more powerful.
It makes sense to her.
If you said that to a new person, no, purple, make it
Absolutely.
purple.
Make it purple. They're like,
But
Carol,
You're out.
purple. That's clearly aquamarine.
Can you not hear the aquamarine? Come on.
Everyone
I
else
can't
can.
work with you.
Tending toward orange even. What are you doing?
Look at social media. Everyone's talking about it.
speaking of social media,
Yes.
so you did a presentation at Pava on the speaking voice.
Yes.
And let's go into that for a second, especially the social media queen of the world, which has also sort of become the genesis for this conversation about vocal fry or speaking in a fry and where it came from. They're blaming her, but really, what is your thoughts on it?
Well, kind of what we've been talking about with all these different choices that we have with our voice. The voice is the most versatile instrument on the planet. And my approach at Pava was just to say, your voice, your choice. It's like my new campaign. I'm pro voice choice. That instead of coming at, especially women, who's the demographic being attacked for using vocal fry or uptalk or whatever the trend might be, to say the first message we have to get out there is that your voice can change. You can do different things with it. Whatever you're doing right now isn't just, might be your habit, but it's not just your biology limitation.
But it's also okay that it's your habit because that's a choice too.
Right. It's an option. There's nothing that's like, you can't make that sound. So I was comparing it to outfits. So instead of telling someone, why are you wearing that? You can't wear that. You can't do vocal fry or whatever it is. Just opening up someone's closet and saying, hey, look, there's all these outfits you could wear. You have choices. So I can talk in vocal fry if I want to. It's a choice. I can also talk way up here. That's my other choice, right? So just opening up people's approach to their voice, that they are in charge. They have options. And we don't need to shame one option over and over, especially if our goal is to get them.
Well, where did the shaming come from?
I mean, I was once again, I was comparing it to fashion, and that demographics that are oppressed, like females, minorities, always are trying to make a change. They're always leading the trends because they're trying to get a seat at the table. Like the black suit hasn't changed in 100 years because it works. The men are in power. I don't need to change my outfit. Women's fashion's always changing because like, okay, maybe this will work. Maybe now I can make the money I want, whatever it is. And I think the same with voices. Like if we could go back and listen to actors since we've had recording and hear, oh, like how many different trends have gone on and what drove that. But then there's always, going to be the shaming on top of that.
But I've heard over the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years, vocal fry is really bad for your voice. It's really unhealthy.
So there's no studies to prove that vocal fry causes a pathology. Sometimes it's comes along with a pathology, but it's not
the source.
It's not the source. But as Dr. Tita says, it is an extreme. So one of the principles of vocalogy is that we always want to be in just kind of a middle place, so we could go in either direction. So you start with your hands in the middle of the piano, so you could go to either extreme. So we could say that vocal fry is starting with your hands at the one side.
So let's go deeper. Explain vocal fry, and explain it from a science perspective as well.
So vocal fry is considered a pulse register. So it's just that the vocal folds have come together in a way, then they're going pulsing together slow enough that I can hear individual pulses. So now
you can hear air between them in a way. That's why it feels like it's like this poking at your ear.
But it's actually a very relaxed posture for the vocal folds. I do it as part of my warm-up all the time.
It's one of the top 10 warm-ups.
Can you do one of those for us?
So I'll go, I slide on it, kind of a sound. Because what happens is it gets the vocal folds together, but without a lot of extra squeezing and pressure, and the use of that muscle that we use when we're speaking. So when I'm singing, I want to use...
is there a particular reason you're shifting your formants? Or are you just doing that to...
I'm doing that... maybe just to warm up my vocal tract.
I do that exercise without changing my vocal tract shape.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, and I do it with, and to get young singers to do that too, because it teaches them, when you can glide without, in a fry, it's engaging the stretching muscle in a way that, as Laura was about to explain, there's a thickening muscle that we tend to use. We use these very straightforward terms because if we use thyroidnoid and cricothyroid,
we'd fall asleep.
Exactly.
It's over.
There's a stretching muscle and a thickening muscle, and they're antagonists. So when one engages, the other has to release. And we tend to use the thickening muscle more often when we speak. We very rarely use the stretching muscle. This is one of Ingo's soapboxes about vocal fry, is that if we speak in vocal fry, we're not using that stretching muscle at all.
You're only contracting.
Yeah. So, but if we fry glide, now we're engaging the stretching muscle in this more relaxed posture. The thickening muscle isn't engaged as much. So now the closing muscles can actually do their job more effectively. And that to me is the biggest benefit of vocal fry, is that it's allowing those closing muscles to
come together.
Is it as simple as a layman's term, stretching? If
physically stretch?
Yeah,
like the muscle. Like if this, so that I'm contracting my bicep and the tricep is relaxed.
Exactly. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, but the stretching isn't the muscle; it's the actual vocal fold tissue, which is really a crazy substance. Yeah.
These two both have certification in fitness training.
Oh, cool.
And so they're going to relate to it when you say that.
I think if I had a deer.
If you had the deer ligament,
it'd make
it a lot easier.
But the biggest, and that's, it's an apt concept. The biggest difference is that with the bicep and the tricep, they're not both engaged at the same time in the same way.
Okay.
So it's and whereas our bigger muscles, there's a big question of strength development and bulking and agility that way. Most of what we do when we're training the voice has to do with coordination. And so the stretching muscle and the thickening muscle I talked about are never going to get bulkier, but they are going to learn to coordinate.
Well, they could, but that wouldn't necessarily help you in the same way. I mean, you could maybe bulk them up, but if you can't learn to talk to them, it hasn't done you
Which
anything.
is more of a neural
process. And
how
much time are we talking about to develop that?
Depends on the person.
Sean, you and I secretly want to go on the road.
I'm doing it right now.
So it's now?
Next era. What's the matter? Nothing.
But I should say this, from my experience, and from our experience, the choir that I worked with at the end of the first year that she and I worked together and developing this process of communicating very difficult information in very simple ways, became so much more agile. They understood their voices more clearly, and they could make sounds that I never thought a college choir could make, that college choir could make, because of where they came from. And so, to your point, when we have found that when we use clear language in a structured fashion where the singer themselves are helping to guide the learning process, that it's almost like the sky's the limit in a very quick amount of time.
I think just hearing it for the first time, that would give me confidence to know that I can build on that just by...
Say more about that. That's really interesting.
No, I'm...
Turning it around. Yeah.
No, it really does. I mean, if I came in knowing nothing about this and saying, no, you can actually build, you're not just born with this, we can help you develop this. That would help.
Just like any other physical motor activity. Yeah, you can.
You're not going to be good, and no one's going to want to listen to you.
No,
but you could get better.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
you're going to be less horrible.
From a standpoint of feeling like you don't sing, right? If you feel like you don't work out, you're in a vast minority, right? Everybody's lifted a weight once or twice, run down the street, right? And we all talk, but we somehow...
Old school style.
Right. Somehow
we're streaking.
We're streaking to it. The quad. Somehow we feel like we aren't voice users, right? Or specialized voice users. And that term, that idea of being a singer, being the specialized voice user, becomes this myth, this mythological other, that even, this is a secret you might not know, even the top singers among us still feel like they might not be those singers.
Oh,
right?
I'm sure.
Because there's this mythological other, right?
Whereas there's Shaka Khan.
There's Shaka Khan in purple.
Yeah.
So you guys have a magazine that you've started. Is this is it a digital?
Yeah, it's just online. It's called the Unfiltered Source, which the source filter theory. That's
explain that though, please.
So,
I mean, because we are talking. I want layman's to.
So the source of our sound comes from our vocal folds. Air comes up, and if they've come together, they can wiggle a bunch and create a series of harmonics or overtones. And then the filter is the air, let's say, behind our tongue, and then we turn a corner and it's above our tongue. And it's going to bring out some of those harmonics and dampen other ones. And that's how sound is, we can tell sound apart through which harmonics boost or don't. The source filter theory is that that filtering process actually feeds back to the source and affects it. So depending on my mouth shape, it's going to affect the way my vocal folds want to vibrate.
In a non-linear way.
Right. It's not just one-to-one.
If you think about a pop singer, singing a high note with that big smile, that's affecting the vocal folds in a way that if they didn't have that smile, they wouldn't be able to make that sound. Same thing with an opera singer with that, we get that sense of, without that shape, they're not able to make that sound.
There's always information feeding back to the source, which is why we have semi-occluded vocal tract exercises, which just means I'm doing a warm-up with my mouth partially closed, either through a straw or humming, because then I'm getting even more feedback to my vocal folds, which helps them out. They don't have to work as hard. And just this idea that only 3% of our sound ever makes it to the outside world. Like, think about that. Like, how loud people can be, that crazy.
I can be so much more annoying. 97% of me.
It's still inside you. Yeah.
Wow. The things I want to tell you. I have to.
Yeah, so that...
We're not talking about your thought.
She said filter, and I was like...
Don't say it.
The Kraken.
I don't have a filter, asshole.
There's no source filter.
I mean,
source.
oops.
So we created the Unfiltered Source. It's an online zine on our website, and we just pulled up this couple images I created to go along with the talk about attacking women's voices, and we created the Voice magazine. New voice, new you. Get that sexy voice he'll love. Lose thyroid fat fast, and this time keep it off. 5 vocal tips to get hired. Detox, de-ossify, which is what happens to our cartilage when we get older on the larynx. Sound 30 years younger in just 30 days. Sound like a man without threatening a man.
I like the little small one you can barely see that says, ingest or smoke, your preference. That's great. Just
What?
kidding.
We're all staring at it.
I'm like, I can't see it. And you,
yeah.
I know you have your glasses on, but
And then, just a couple quotes I pulled talking about that it just seems like no matter what women or minorities do with their voices, it's never enough. Like, oh, that's too high. Oh, wait, that's too loud. Oh, now you're too soft. Oh, honey, why don't you sound more confident? Oh, that's too shrill. Now it's too low, too breathy, whatever it is.
Can't get elected if you have a screech in your voice.
Well, you
Right,
can if you're a
or-
man,
Yes.
just not if you're a woman.
We don't talk. Yeah.
It's true.
It doesn't.
Nobody ever said nothing about
definition.
Bernie's voice. I love Bernie, but he sounds like an old man screaming. But people
He
wrote
is.
Hillary like she was, the Kraken.
right.
Yeah. And there's this weird emotion.
And it's funny because even Hillary supporters would be go,
The
oh,
crack
it's just
from
grating.
Right.
Titan.
It's weird. We do have this sort of built-in double standard.
And if you'll listen to
Absolutely,
her, her political career, her voice changed a lot. In fact, somebody put a video together of that, and it wasn't that she
Margaret
was.
Thatcher.
It wasn't about aging. She was actually making choices
On how she spoke.
on how she spoke because she was getting criticism, and that's just.
We watched the debates, and she was just so calm and delivering.
Oh,
and you
yeah.
want her to get,
You wanted her to get pissed. Yeah.
Well, some people didn't, but some people did.
Yeah.
So, and anyway, you could tell she's being coached through that.
Yeah. So
But that was Laurel's approach and to that presentation and to this part of the zine was, again, going back to the fashion thing and to all of the double standards women are treated to because they are functioning as a minority in this society. Even though there are more of them, they have a smaller seat at the table, women as a body. And so looking at the voice in that same way.
Women
and-
are paid less to use their voices. They make less as actresses, as radio announcers. They're just less. They don't have as many chances to even be heard. So I was really interested in looking at voice as an issue of who's a minority in the
Interesting.
voice world. Yeah.
But so are you saying change your voice or don't change your voice?
I'm saying it's your choice.
Yeah.
You missed that part.
You can, well, you can either not get the job or you can change it to get the job, right? I mean, sadly.
Right. But I would say, once again, I compared it to appearance. And when we tell people, fat people don't get hired as much, you should lose weight. To me, that is not the statement. The statement is, oh my gosh, look at this systematic prejudice. That's what needs to change. Like, I don't need to change my body. Like, that's really effed up that I can't get hired because I don't look a certain way. And so it's more that, you have all these different colors at your disposal. You can bring them out when you want. Don't feel stuck in one place, but don't be told that, especially if you're in an oppressed group, that somehow that makes you less than because of a choice you've made.
But there's a question here too that I think you brought up, which is if the individual, kind of runs out after the windmill with the toothbrush, hoping to fight this massive system, and says, "Well, I'm going to speak in vocal fry. I'm going to get whatever job I want." They might not get whatever job they want.
But you might,
Right.
but
If
you
you're
also
Don
might
Quixote.
change your voice, like we were saying with Hillary Clinton, and still not get any
And still
approval.
not
So
get the
why the
approval.
hell make all that effort?
You end up chasing
Well,
it.
it's a big topic, and it's a little off, this particular thing now. But I definitely think it's an interesting thing that we're just we're scratching the surface on.
Well,
but
you don't think about your voice until it's being recorded.
True.
You just are talking and you're
Which is
whatever.
another part about that whole, how do we respond emotionally to our sound?
Right. And do you guys, because you study this so intensely, are you constantly conscious of your voice? Like, are you constantly going like, ooh, that was not good. I should really.
Not constantly, but often. I'm in a regular process of monitoring
The sound.
my development and how I sound is because there are lots of changes I'm continually
You're just
making.
aware, right? I mean, it's like.
But
you
I mean,
just-
I think there has to be two different moments with all kinds of learning. There's the moment of editing and going back and assessing, and then the moment of just doing. And if they're in the same room, you're not having the best learning experience. So just do, create over and over, set your target, go after it, and then assess and edit after.
Right.
that's a very
Be creative.
Buddhist concept.
So we,
Well, it is. It's that the whole idea of something enters. How do you react to that rather than process it, then respond to it?
Right.
And we always process and then respond. We filter it, and we're not even realizing
Too
our
much
emotions.
conscious mind.
Yeah.
The body's got to do all that stuff anyway.
Yeah.
well, we talked about vocal fry, and it's been popular lately in the news with Kardashians. Howard Stern did a whole thing on it with George Takei and how he has that deep voice, and now he's doing the vocal fry. What's another example besides that myself, I would never heard of it until a month ago?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly, like Laurel said, it's not new to the voice. It is one of the things the voice can do. SLPs, speech language pathologists, have categorized it as one of the 4 modes of the voice. So it's one of the things we do.
Right.
It is more prevalent in culture today, and specifically, we started really talking about this in earnest this summer as we were traveling across the country from Boston to LA and teaching voice workshops and stuff. And we heard a podcast. I can't remember the podcast name, but it was 2 women talking about vocal fry, and as we were listening to them, it was clear that they were coming from the perspective of, look, my voice fries when I talk. This is me. By you telling me that I can't vocal fry, you are saying that I am not worthy. And yet here I am, a radio host, both of them radio hosts, So where does that put me? Here's my profession. I do this thing. This is how my voice sounds. And you're telling me that I'm not worthy. And they brought up this litany of information about radio hosts and men and women get tons of hate mail every day. I can't listen to your voice. You sound like a kraken. Why do you have to do that to me? Just really, and then way more body, awful, horrible, attacking personal things. And the men don't get any of that. Ira Glass with This American Life did a program on that. He said, I never get hate mail. He speaks with vocal fry. And there's tons of radio announcers. And we've speculated that maybe because you're so close to the radio, maybe you just don't want to talk too loud or something. I don't know why they do it, but it tends to be prevalent in radio. And I think, too, it's prevalent in like series kinds of dramas. Not so much in movies, but my guess is, the miking is really close. The director's looking for an intimacy. So when you vocal fry, it takes all the upper harmonics out of the sound. And ergo, you get a more intimate quality, even though with that pulse, you also get that kind of pokey attacking sound. Yeah.
I don't know what you mean.
So what's the difference? Like, what about a sports announcer? I don't keep going back to sports, but
those are classic voices, right? Classic radio voices.
So that was my first question: is what's an example of something? So we talked about fry, but what's another term for like Vince Scully? Like his voice is, right away when you hear him, or Larry King, or someone because we're talking about men and how they don't get the.
Yeah, we had this conversation about sports too. My family are major sports buffs because I grew up in Alabama, Roll Tide, and
Birmingham.
Yeah, right. I went to Tuscaloosa though. So, yeah. Anyway, and so I watched sports with them, and when people do sports stuff, often on TV, they're way far away from the microphone, right? Or so they're speaking louder to cover the space.
There's also much more energy and all that stuff.
And they're dudes, right? They're athletes, and so they're talking loud.
But
do you think there's something to? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But okay. Do you think there's something to just the frequency? So let's take the prejudice off the table for a second. Just go. Is the lower frequency something that's more appealing?
I don't know if it's the lower frequency, but the amount of harmonics.
Well, but the lower frequency is going to have a piece of that, because if you're starting, let's say, 100 hertz, it's spread out more.
Or less spread.
Well, it's less spread. That's what I mean. So, the other is going to be spread out more, but you hit more harmonics.
Right.
It's a more
Does that
complex
make a difference?
sound.
But when you vocal fry, you get no harmonics. I say
it's
if you truly vocal fry, then there's no
no, it's compacted. That's the reason it doesn't show up. It's so if you're 70 hertz or lower, then everything is stacked so closely. That's why it shows up. Like when we do the spectrum analysis and use vocal fry to see the formants. It's just the harmonics are there, but they're so close together. You're seeing the formants.
By the way, no one's thinking of this. When they're watching sports.
We went way off layman's, didn't we?
Yeah,
but often when people speak with vocal fry, they're also pressing the vocal folds in a way that they're getting some harmonics. They're getting pitch with the fry. It's a pitched fry.
Both. Yeah.
And so that becomes more complex in itself.
So, but I'm wondering, when you listen to an announcer, they're talking and the Cubs and blah, 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 and this is the sound. You're getting, it's a lower frequency,
Clearly Dave
which
doesn't
means...
watch sports. In the club.
I didn't say that.
He said cubbies.
Sunday when football's on, I'm knitting.
Right.
But so there is, if you take away the gender prejudices and different things like that, so if you just analyze you're getting lower frequencies with much more harmonic stack. Is that more appealing?
I don't know, because I don't know if you can take the prejudice out of it. Because maybe
not.
Because maybe in my life, actually, I can guarantee in my life, I have heard more male voices
That's
than
what I was
female.
going to say. It's just like sports. Again, in Title IX, women weren't allowed to play in sports until Title IX was
That's
passed.
what I'm used to
You didn't have
hearing.
women announcers. So if you grew up listening to that, that's normal. And
Yeah,
when
you're just used
when
to
you
it.
hear some,
I mean, maybe from a composer's point of view, I'm going to use those lower frequencies for a certain emotional quality and higher for others. We get more vowel qualities because we get more harmonics in a lower frequency. But then, I mean, the higher the harmonic, the more decibel and energy it has. So that's so exciting to people's ears. Once you get to that 3,000 hertz area, your ear amplifies it even more, and you're like, yes, I love this sound. So I don't know. I think
If we take it back,
different colors. I don't know.
if we take it back just to the male-female thing, though, the three guys in this room are speaking around probably 150 hertz. Well, if vocal fry is 70 hertz, we're real close to that.
Right.
Whereas the two women in the room are speaking somewhere around probably 300 hertz.
And they have
so
to
now we
really
much,
impose to
much
get
So
that.
now
better
it seems
sound.
weird,
Yeah.
right?
Superior.
Clearly, right.
something that I think is similar in the newscast to the men and women, they seem like they have the same.
Tone.
Yeah.
Or like
I think that's a social adaptation, right?
Right.
I want to be off the table.
7,500 people died today.
Well, in
Carol, back to you.
It's going to be.
Yeah.
You should be in this.
well, in music, the lead lines are always in similar fundamental frequencies too. So, like the guitar lines are going to be similar to the vocal lines are. Men and women are similar. So
Yeah.
they're not. There's not a big disparagement between those two.
And
I don't know what it means, but I just know that.
No, I just don't know what hertz. I'm trying to figure out
what the hertz is.
Right.
It's so
You could have
hertz
said
is
1,000 at that.
right. Hertz is a fancy word for pitch. So it's not a fancy word. It's slightly different than pitch. Pitch is perception. Hertz is a mathematical equation. So if you'll just think about like a low sound, like ba, that's about 100 hertz. That's double, about 200 hertz. That's 300, whatever. Just it's exponential, and on and on and on.
Gotcha.
So like super high. If Laurel were to sing, can you give us a high C real quick? Not in the
How
mic.
much do I back up?
Yeah, a lot. So that's about 1,000.
Okay.
So you get that range, and if we vocal fry, I'm about 70 or so.
That's awesome.
And what it is like super simple. It's wiggles in the air. It's how many times per second the air molecules are wiggling, which comes from how many times per second my vocal folds were interrupting. Yeah.
Oh.
So when I did that 1,000 hertz, I was actually, my little flaps of tissue right here were coming together 1,000 times per second.
Wow.
And then the air vibrated 1,000 times per second, and then it hit your ear 1,000 times per second. And then the
Yeah, it did.
neurons in your brain fired 1,000 times per second.
When you guys argue, do you go like, Laurel, you're up to 300 hertz. I don't like it. Can we bring it down?
No,
You're not mad?
principles.
Really?
According to
864, and
the
you're gonna tell me you're
hertzometer.
I can tell you're mad at me. Your third harmonic popping. I know.
The sassy harmonic, yeah.
You clearly line it up with a formant. I don't like it.
I don't know.
I
You don't
even
like
know
what I
your
could-
I'm
voice
going to
at
give you
Just
some
say it.
time to bring those harmonics
Bring
down.
them down. It's very
We
true.
actually do that. Yeah.
It's annoying, yeah.
Do you guys have perfect pitch? Either of you?
Working on it.
We're working on it.
Really? You think
And
you
I'm
can
working on
develop it?
defining it. Oh,
Really?
definitely. Yeah, no question.
All the research I've seen, so either you're born with it or not.
Absolutely not.
Really?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
I think it's
We're
the
working on
research-
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
right
you
now.
can, if you grow up with a tonal language, you're way, way more likely to have it. So if, like in a lot of Mandarin and Chinese, if you like ta is different than ta, like there's
Right.
like that pitched is also part of
One
the
of them
word.
means get the garbage put out, and the other one is where's the cat?
Right,
Right.
and you know the difference.
Yeah.
That's where the cat is. Oh my God.
But if you listen
awful.
if you just take a second to listen, just go to a piano and play pitches and listen behind the pitch, if you will, you'll start to notice that each pitch, even by octave, all F sharps have a similar quality, all E flats have a similar quality, all Gs. And based on that information, you can develop aural acuity so that you hear that difference as subtlety. The trick is being able to do it in time. So like if I sit and I'm in a kind of Zen place, I can hear it all. But when I'm listening to a choir sing 14 pitches at me, I have to go back
purpose,
to
or-
what I'm used to doing.
It's interesting because there are moments I'll hear a note and I can walk over to the piano and I'll know exactly what it is. And other times I go, Generally I know where it's at, but
there's only 12 of them.
Yeah.
What's your problem, Dave?
Yeah, geez, Dave.
12 of them times 8.
Stop embarrassing me.
I mean, we can all identify
told there was
color
be no math. Yeah.
Yeah. But so what we've been fussing with, and the only reason I don't have any hard science right now is just because I haven't done it, but is what is it about those individual frequencies that even when doubled, tripled, quadrupled, still sounds the same? And we've got some hypotheses, but just haven't done the research.
And I think too with
this would be really, by the way, this would be really cutting edge. Because I've never seen any resesh that showed you can develop it, which always discouraged me.
We've got 2 or 3 projects like that we're like, that's going to be awesome when we finally do it. Yeah. Maybe we can get Dave Stroud to do it. He does all kind of stuff.
He's got time.
He's got time.
No.
Put another ball. Just add another one.
By the way, if I can rub a little grease on you for a second, just like to say it's really exciting to be here with you and to say publicly how impressed we are and excited by what you're doing to bring this information to the average voice user, because everything you're doing, it seems, in the great sea of vocal stars in LA, your approach seems to have a benevolence and an open-mindedness that I think is unique.
Well, I spent a lot of time. I mean, again, Neil deGrasse Tyson is one of my heroes. Love. If I could go back, I would be a physicist. Although I don't know if it'd be particle or astrophysics.
Never would have married you, but
but his approach to things is so great. You see what he did bringing Cosmos back and what he's done with Star Talk and all that sort of stuff. And in this world, and I've spent years with people who in the studio are saying it's my way or the highway. And I bought into that. I bought into that for years and went, well, it's me. It's not them. It's me. I must learn what they're doing. And it's just not the case. There's a smorgasbord of awesome information, and you need to be able to take what works for you.
Yeah.
I'm hungry.
And there's no possible way one person has all the answers. And that's why I love interacting like this, because everyone who comes through this brings something different.
Right.
And it's like, all right, that's awesome. That's going to change the way I communicate with students or the way I work with myself. And every time I spend time with Ingo, I go home going, God, the one little thing just changed my thinking.
Yeah, there's always more. Yeah.
There's always more. And it's on the medical side that's worse than voice teachers.
Yeah, they know
the medical side needs to be, they need to let the guard down. And my frustration with them is they use a certain term. This is a nodule. Well, it's not uniform. And when you're in their office, it's, well, I said it is, so it is.
Right.
And that's not helpful.
Well, when you think about this, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that hit me a couple months ago was that as we were trying to figure out how to market ourselves in LA, which is a vast market, but it's also one that's populated more, I think, than anywhere in the world with celebrity voice teachers. So, why would people look at us and that's not our message at all. Our message is basically what you said. There's so much here. Let's share it with you in a way that anybody can be empowered to go after it. But it hit me that our industry, the voice, is never ending. It is a complete supply side paradise because the demand is so vast. Everybody wants to use their voice well. Even if they don't say it, we all want to be able to speak well. We all want to be able to communicate. And many, many people want to be able to sing. And so that's one of the reasons that the opinions can be so soft in a way, or I guess hard-lined, but soft in their actual information. Because there's just no end to the supply of people who want to use it. And so when you're in that room with somebody and you're the expert, you can say whatever you want, because there's 10 more people behind them if they walk, right? And so that it brings a certain focus to what we do just from a pure economic standpoint, where we really don't have to be that specific. So anybody who's going to choose to be is almost taking a stand for humanity.
Yeah, there's that statistic that if everyone who sings in a choir in the U.S. sought out a voice teacher, every member of NATS, which is an association of voice teachers, would have 2,000 or so students. I mean,
NADS?
NATS.
Seems like they should change
I
that.
got the number. Yeah.
I was going to join.
Well, Chorus America has 42.6 million members in Chorus America.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I mean, it's a desire. It's not like we're in the business of Blu-ray. Like, we're not going anywhere. Like,
it's only going to grow.
Yeah.
in fact, I had that conversation with Ingo when we were in Toronto in November, whatever it was. I taught a lesson in a public forum, and afterwards he came up and he says, so how do you, I guess what you need to do is, come across as authoritarian in a lesson, and, I guess the student needs that. And I said, that's not my approach. My approach is I'll tell them right to begin with, I don't have all the answers. I'm happy to share what I know, but you should seek out others for different things. I can't possibly have all the information.
Yeah, and that the student, the singer, has actually the most information. Like, they know what singing feels like to them, or speaking. Like, you can't put a sensation on someone.
Yeah, totally.
And that's, a big
It's the purple
guide.
thing.
Yeah.
But so, and kind of to say that in a slightly different way too, to say, I don't have all the answers. Nobody does. Even the smartest people who know the most about the voice don't. But
Because Ingo will go, that's a good question.
that's a good question, right?
Don't know.
Science is not here to answer everything. It's here to ask more questions.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
a way to ask questions.
It's a way to ask
Yeah.
questions.
Absolutely. And that's important, that because you get butt up against people who say, well, science doesn't have all the answers. You're right.
You're right.
They're the only ones asking the questions and
Right.
willing to say to someone else in the community, I think you're wrong and I'm going to go prove it. And that other person go, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to see what you have to say about it.
Yeah. And when we all open to that, it allows us to be less proprietary as well.
Totally.
It's like the
And you don't have to operate out of fear.
exactly.
You can operate out of, man, I just want to help.
Right. It's like GitHub. Are you all familiar with GitHub?
Totally. Yeah, we store all of our code there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you want to explain it real quick?
Well, GitHub is just a repository. So when you code something, it has to go somewhere, that source code. And so Facebook, all of our software, all these companies, they use GitHub or Bitbucket or something like that.
I know, get grub.
Right. Exactly. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And specifically, GitHub is cool because prior to 2008, when it came online, there were lots of capacities for coders to go into chat groups and develop code that was project specific. What GitHub did is it said, here's one repository. Excuse me.
Very different.
Very different.
Did you take your GitHub today? Not really. I think that's
Freudian?
yesterday.
I hope that wasn't Freudian. But there's one repository where everybody can put their ideas. So like Dave has code for whatever.
Bunch of different projects.
Right.
Yep.
It goes in there. Well, let's say somebody in Singapore wants to do a similar project. They can go and pull up Dave's and say, oh, I like where that's going. Let me add some stuff and then put it back into the mix. Right. So they, and then it became their thing, even though it was built on Dave's. And so then Dave can look at it again and say, oh, that was a really cool fix. I'm going to take it and do something else. Right. And then maybe somebody in Canada could do the same. And so that's where I hope to see the voice world going more, is in this kind
Sharing
of
and-
non-proprietary, yeah, I did this, but please help.
Well, the open source thing is why we have so many, why technology over the last 10 years has exponentially grown, is because of
Exactly.
having open source and having,
Yeah.
that's why, Waze and all these other things, you have users bringing information in and making it stronger. We need to wrap up.
Oh, okay.
We still have a ton of stuff to get to with you, so we're going to have to. We'll reschedule and bring you in for part 2. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
because I'd love to get more into. You talked about the third harmonic and the sixth harmonic, and I'd love to jump into that so that's explained a little bit better. Because this is stuff that does take a time for people to really wrap their brains around.
Yeah,
So.
but I'd also say, just as a teaser to that, we
Why are you looking at me? The weird part is when your brother looks at you when someone says that.
I just happened to be looking up here.
But we caught eyes and it was creepy.
One of the things that we did at Holy Cross and with choirs and Laura would give a little 10-15 minute talk about sort of defining what harmonics are and how to use them, and then again I use in voice lessons. I have a voice analyzer open, and we'll often stop it and have the student look at what their voice looks like on the analyzer and say, do you see the second harmonic behaving this way and your sound created this kind of stuff? And with very limited explanation, they're able to access that visual of their voice and get really excited and use that information immediately. So it seems, and it is, very complex, but there's ways to talk about it so straightforward that in 3-4 minutes they can start to use it and then learn through practice.
Especially when you're modifying and they can hear the changes and they can see it. I think it's a really good way to help people learn. But All right. So where can people find you guys? Can they find out more about everything you're doing?
So our website is VoiceScienceWorks.org, and it's full of really just free information. We want little bite-sized articles about the vocal tract, different warm-ups. We have a whole who else is doing what area where you can see all the different blogs and software that's out there. We have lots of different blogs. So, yeah, check it out. It's all free and trying to be as accessible as possible.
Okay. Anywhere else? I mean, any other contact information that you want to put out?
Yeah, I mean, we do workshops regularly for schools, for individuals, for whatever. We offer lectures kind of all over the country fairly frequently. And you can get to us through our email, I guess, VoiceScienceWorks at gmail.com.
Okay.
And we're working on several projects, including an online series that's going to explain those technologies that I talked about and how to kind of use them quickly and easily. We're currently working on a book that's called
Game On, Voice Science. All about how to teach these really complex topics with games, especially with groups
right on.
and
Yeah.
gamification.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
Very cool.
anyway, there's lots of different projects like that, but the quickest way to get to us is through the website.
Awesome. Okay. Super. Thanks to our special guest for today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
His maiden voyage over there.
I think you'll have to start calling him the Kraken, though.
Yeah.
Release the
Kraken.
Kraken.
I think we should.
Well, thanks everyone for coming, and thank you guys. And I really would love to do a follow-up with you guys and dig into this
Let's
deeper.
do it.
And so
Would love that.
we'll schedule that, and our great producer Darcy will jump in and take care of that. So thanks to Darcy for producing it. Thanks
Awesome.
to TNS for their studio and all the work they do for us here. And we will see you guys next time on a future episode.
Thank you all so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you. See you soon.
Sing Talk. This is Sing Talk Radio.